Hello farmers and welcome to the harvest season. My name is Al.
And my name is Rochelle.
And we're here to talk about farming games.
Woo!
Woo! Today we've got a very exciting main topic for you. We'll start out with our usual, what we've been playing, the Pokemon section, and some news. And then we'll get on to our main topic, which is, Rochelle, would you like to say what it is?
Yeah. We had an interview with the developers of the game Snacko, which you may or may not remember is the game that I love and am very excited about, which was very, very fun. And we have that for our dear beloved listeners to listen to.
Yeah. So our first interview, assuming we're not counting talking to Micah as an interview. Sorry, Micah.
Poor Micah. Micah didn't feel like an interview. Micah felt like hanging out with a good friend.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got that for you. So look forward to that after all the other stuff that we're going to talk about.
After the good parts. That was so mean.
Ouch.
I'm sorry. That's my usual joke of like everyone actually only comes for the news, but it doesn't ring the same when you have a news. I'm so sorry.
So Rochelle, what have you been playing?
You're not going to believe this. But secretly for weeks now, I've been playing the Snacko Alpha. And it's an alpha. It's still in development. It's really cute and really fun though. Really into it. I have been playing, other than that, some Stardew Valley, of course. I'm still on my new farm I made for the update, which has been very, very fun. Probably other than that, it's just the usual, you know? I've been playing my daily Pokemon. I've been playing my Zombies Run, which is a challenge, actually, because it's the dead of winter. And I don't know if our listeners know this, but usually when I go out for my walks or runs, it's when I come home from work, which is in like the early hours of the morning. So like I go out for walks and runs at like 3 to 5 a.m. when it's very, very cold. So I've been doing a lot of very, very short Zombies Run games. I think that's about it. What have you been playing?
Well, I have been also playing a bit of the Snacko Alpha. And just because I don't think we mentioned this in the interview, we mentioned that you can get the alpha, but I don't think we mentioned how. You can get the alpha by supporting them on Patreon. So that is, if you listeners want to, that's how you can get it. So I've been playing a bit of that, although nowhere near as much as you, Rochelle, I assume, because I've literally spent maybe like a couple of hours on it. The amount of time I spend playing on Switch compared to anything else is just incredibly disproportionate. I have also been playing Stardew Valley. I was inspired by your discussion of it last episode about the new map and the new features, and so I've been playing that. I love the map. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've always felt like I've never really struggled for space in Stardew.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this makes it feel a lot more kind of achievable at the beginning. You've got like this small square that you can just focus on if you want to and ignore the rest of it. And then I like the compartmentalization of it, the different bits. So I've been doing that, been enjoying it. I have been pursuing a relationship with Leah, is it? Or Lee? I don't know how it's meant to be said. Leah.
You didn't go to school with like 8 Leahs?
No.
I did.
I had never really talked to her before this game, so it's really interesting to see her story arc. Yeah, she's quite cool.
I love Leah.
So there's that. I've also been doing my daily Pokemon, trying to get all the alchemy and all that. I think I've got one of every flavor now, but not one of every flavor and sweet. Obviously, I'm quite a way off that. I think I'm about a third of the way through, but that's including the ones you can't get yet. So
yeah, because there's like 2 sweets that you can't actually access.
Yeah,
which I was very distressed over until I figured out that you can't actually access them yet, and that made me feel better about not having any.
I just hope they do end up allowing us to access them, and it doesn't end up becoming like the Eternal Floette or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like we never get access to them.
Maybe they'll unlock them with the new areas.
That's my current hope. That is my current hope. So yeah, I think that's what I've mostly been playing. Yeah, a wee bit of Ring Fit Adventure as well.
I am secretly tempted to get Ring Fit Adventure.
It is surprisingly good.
I have not talked to a single person who was disappointed, and not just not just that people aren't disappointed, but like people actively really enjoy this game, which is surprising for like a fitness game.
Yeah, I don't know how they've managed it, but it's not like the most amazing game, but for a game that is primarily designed to get you doing exercise, it's surprisingly fun. And it is really good at making you do exercise. Like by the end of certain reps, I'm like, please let it end. It's just like, it just manages to push me just past my comfort point, getting to the point where you're like, I'm actually working things. And then at the end of your 10-minute session where it's like, are you going to stop now? And I'm like, yes, I'm going to stop now. Although I did see that someone has managed. There is one person who is the current record holder for the speed run of Ring Fit Adventure, and he did it non-stop in 18 hours and like 25 minutes or something like that.
And how many weeks was he like bedridden?
No idea, but they had something like one toilet break in that, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like,
that's too hardcore.
Ridiculous.
That sounds a little dangerous to me, because like a huge part of exercising is that you actually your body physically needs to rest to be able to, well, not just not be injured, but like it's part of like the exercise process, or like part of like building up muscle is like the resting is just as important as the act of exercising.
Yeah.
So like you're not supposed to just go forever.
Sure. I'm hoping that it's this has been something they've been training for, and it's not like they just bought the game and went for it. Because there are plenty of feats of ridiculousness like that. A couple of years ago, for some reason, I did a half marathon. I've never ran since that. Never do that. It's horrific. But like, if I tried to do that on the first day, I wouldn't have managed. But I spent like 3 months training for it, and then you got to the point where you can actually do it. It was still horrific, but I managed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's 8 weeks to a 5K. I know that from experience. But yeah, I was going to say I would be truly shocked if this person was not like someone who's really into exercising in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cool.
So I guess that's our Pokemon talk.
Yeah. Not a lot this time. Maybe more when it actually comes out.
Yeah. This might be partially influenced by the fact that I did not immediately see the Direct when it first came out. I may or may not have broken my phone with a car. So I did not immediately see it when it first came out. And so I think that kind of like probably inherently tempered a little bit of my excitement, just being really behind everybody else on it. But it looks exciting and it looks fun, but also it's one of those things where I'm like, just like the main game, I'm excited to see what it is. Yeah. And I have no necessarily expectations. I learned that with Swish coming out, like, I'm not going to get super attached to anything. I'm not going to get super angry about anything until I see what it actually is, so I can judge what the actual content is. I do like the Pokemon they showed, but then I'm also I am notorious for loving all of the Pokemon, so that's not a surprise.
Yeah, I'm tentatively looking forward to it. It could be really great, or it could be slightly disappointing. And I guess we'll find out. I'm extremely excited about the fact that the two areas that we've got are based on the Isle of Man and Scotland. It's like, the two places I care most about and like most, and they're releasing 2 DLC this year based on them.
And that's super exciting.
If we've not even had Scotland in the game yet, right? I presumed the wild area was what they were like, oh, this is Scotland, and I was like, we've not even had Scotland in the game yet, and there are still so many bagpipes. How many more bagpipes are we going to get when the Crown Tundra is released?
More bagpipes. I'm a big bagpipe fan, so like I'm very excited about that. The idea that there will potentially be even more bagpipes.
Love bagpipes. That the main wild area theme is just so good. I could listen to that for ages. There's an interesting thing as well that I feel like they might actually understand the Isle of Man, because one thing that people have been kind of fighting against the idea of it being based on the Isle of Man is because they're like, oh, there's a lot of Asian influence though. And so an interesting thing about the Isle of Man is it has a very, now before I say this, I know this is not Asian. Bear with me. There is a very large population in the Isle of Man of South Africans. It's like if you go there, it's very clear that, I don't know the exact numbers, but it feels like roughly 1 in 3 people is South African. Like, it's a very high. No idea why. It's just a thing that happens, right? So much higher than anywhere else I've been. I've not been to South Africa, so I'm sure there's a higher proportion of people in South Africa who are South African. But obviously, it's not exactly the same thing, but I think it's quite interesting that they have these influences from Asia, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're clearly trying to kind of take that, the fact that there's this island that is near this other region, but has quite a large population from, I don't know whether they're going to make it that they'll be from one of the Japanese regions that we've had games based on, but it feels like they're kind of doing that. And so that in itself actually lends towards the idea that they're basing it on it, because they've taken that kind of real life knowledge and just kind of modified it a bit for the Pokemon world.
This sort of idea that like we're like on this separate island, there's a large community of a different particular culture from the main culture of the region, and that's a thing that can actually exist.
Yeah. And the thing is that in some ways the Isle of Man is a really weird place, right? Because you go there, and if you're from anywhere in, I'm going to say Britain, because I have never actually been to Northern Ireland, so I'm not sure what it's really like. So if you're from somewhere in Britain, or you've been to lots of different places in Britain, you can go to the Isle of Man and you're like, this all feels kind of similar, but also kind of different. It's just kind of that weird combination of different things. And it's like, it's somehow familiar, but also somehow really foreign, which can be really exciting. I don't know how I feel about Scotland being a frozen wasteland, though, but we'll get into that.
We don't know. We'll see. One thing I'm really excited about is it looks like there's new Reggies.
Yeah, that looks interesting.
And I don't know if you know this about me, but I am deeply in love with, like, Regigigas is one of my top favorite Pokemon. And for me, I mean this is the correct position, and if you disagree, that's fine. Regigigas is like the patron Pokemon of dads, in my opinion, because the whole lore is that Regigigas made all the other little Reggies, they're like their children. And is how I conceptualize this, of just like, yes, Regigigas is children. Regice, Registeel, and I'm just like, oh, you're gonna have more children. I'm so excited.
There's something really cool about the Reggies,
and that's why
I don't have any issue with there being more Reggies. It'll be interesting to see whether they are new Reggies or whether they're forms of the Reggies, because I think it's kind of pretty much
like
accepted that the birds are probably forms of the Kanto birds.
Forms. I think either way, I would be excited. Because if they're new, that's new and exciting. But also if they're forms, that's also new and exciting. Like, and I love it both in the sense of, like, I get it, like, mechanically, like, this idea of, like, we don't want to keep expanding infinitely the Pokedex because it's becoming unwieldy. Like, we're very quickly approaching 1,000, which is a disgustingly huge number. I understand it in that aspect, but then it's also, it creates this, like, continuity and connectedness within, like, the world, like, the Poke world. Being able to say, like, yeah, there's these creatures, and then they travel to different places and they adapt to different places, kind of like creatures do in our real world, and it makes it feel more real, and it makes it feel more connected. Like I know it's silly, like, everyone makes fun of, like, we always have the Pidgey clone in every generation, but, like, that's, like, as someone who's done a little bit of traveling, like, I haven't done a ton of traveling in the world, but, like, it's one of those things where you're like, you can go to a place and feel like, oh my gosh, this is so new and strange, and the grass is weirdly green, but also there's still birds here. You know what I mean? Like, it's this sense of, like, it may be strange and different, but also you can still connect to it because there's still those touchstones that you have from wherever you come from that you can connect to and wherever you're going to, so that you can kind of, like, latch on to be able to create that connection with the place. And I love that. And that's what forms do, is say, like, oh, you remember Zigzagoon? You really love Zigzagoon. Here's your latch-on point to get into this new place. Like, I love it
when
a
they
lot.
brought out Gen 7 and they were like, here are these forms that are different forms of the same Pokemon you know, because they've done something different in this other place. It was kind of like that point where you're like, huh, why hadn't they done this already? Like, that makes perfect sense. Of course, this is something that would
Mm-hmm.
happen in the Pokemon world. This is just a thing that would happen. And so it was like a really good,
Mm-hmm.
I loved that. And so I like the expanding on it. And, they're doing more than just Gen 1. So that's all good.
Mm-hmm. We do not need to have a discussion on this. This is just a random thought from the top of my head. I wonder if Pokemon was being started now, if because we joke, like, there's a Pidgey clone every generation. If it was being started now, do you think the Pidgey clone every generation would be Pidgey, but a different form? Like,
interesting question.
Like,
yeah,
this is the Alolan Pidgey,
I don't know.
instead of like...
Because I wonder about certain things, like if Pokemon, with the technology we have now, was started, we would never have had two different Nidorans, right? Because they have many now that have gender differences, right? They would have just had Nidoran. And they would probably had the Nidorino, Nidoqueen, Nidoking, right? They wouldn't have been the same Pokemon, but they would have just had the one to start with, and it depends on which gender it is, which one they evolve into. But obviously that must have been too complicated for the first game, and then they've just, they're not going to change that now. But like that sort of thing definitely would never have happened the way that it did. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question.
That's just some food for
Pokemon.
Thought. And that ends the Pokemon section of this Not Pokemon podcast.
Shall we talk about some news?
I love talking about the news. The listeners love talking about the news. Let's talk about the news.
All right. The first bit of the news is just a little update that I will be at PodUK at the end of January. So it's a small podcast conference in Birmingham in England. So if anybody is interested in going to that, if anyone's going to that, feel free to let me know and we can meet up. That is on the 1st of February, I think. Something like that. Yeah, 1st of February. Let's go with that. So, yeah. It's very possible that nobody that listens to the podcast is going, but I thought I would put that information out there. Just
go visit Alan, say hi, and he'll give you a high five.
I will. We don't have any merch or anything for me to give you yet. Maybe one day.
Maybe someday.
On to more exciting news. We have 2 updates for games that are very close to the podcast. So the first one is we have a Littlewood update. Have you looked at this yet, Rochelle? That's not an answer to the question.
I may or may not be reading it right now.
This is the bug update. So Sean has added lots of new bugs into the game, and that's the creatures, not the flaws.
The game has not become more buggy and hard to play. It is more buggy in the pleasant way, where there's more bugs.
There are more bugs to catch.
I'm excited about this.
Included in that, there is a new tree, the catacomb tree, which if you've seen on Twitter, it looks incredible. It's like this barfing tree and there's like bugs flying around. It's amazing. It's at the Grand Library. So that's cool. One thing that I'm very excited about is that when you talk to a villager, it no longer consumes energy. I did like this as a kind of, we talked in our first episode about it, that I found it really funny, and it kind of felt like a commentary on life, about how talking to people can be exhausting. But like as a game aspect, obviously I don't want it to actually do that. So yeah, you can talk to villagers and not lose energy or collapse. There's also the new golden fishing rod, which when you are catching a fish, if there's a fish right next to it, it can catch that fish as well, which is very cool.
Which is an awesome thing.
Very cool.
And you can walk over crops, you can walk over crops, you can walk over crops, and not make my mistakes where I made one really long column of crops and then had to walk all the way through. Problem solved. You can walk over crops. And I bet you weren't expecting that to be what I ledged onto in this.
Oh, I don't. It is a big update. You can only walk over them if they are like freshly planted or freshly picked. If they're like I think there's like a stage between the two, that if they're in that one, I don't think you can walk over it. But that's fine, because you're mostly going to be walking over them when you've just planted them or when you've just picked them. So that is a good update. And we've also had a little teaser from Sean about the next update. the next update is
So
going to
excited.
be big. We don't know what that
So
means
excited.
yet. We don't know what that means, but it's
gonna
going to
be
be
great.
big. Speaking of big updates, we also have an update from Forager. So I don't see any actual confirmation of this, but I think in the timeline that this is what was called at the creation of the timeline. This was called the mod update, but it is now called the nuclear update because I guess mod update was just too boring
does
a name.
feel more exciting.
You're not wrong there. So the big thing, obviously, with this is that this includes the mod support. I feel like we have an answer as to whether the mods will be coming to Switch or not, because the mods are using Steam Workshop, which I think is a feature built into Steam to allow them to make mods without writing code. So based on that, I presume you can't get that anywhere that you don't get Steam. So I'm guessing we're not getting mods on Switch, which is a bit sad, but I'm not hugely surprised. I was kind of expecting that. It's probably a lot of work to implement all that stuff for Switch as well. So we'll see. Maybe they'll surprise us, but I wouldn't expect the mods when the nuclear update comes to Switch.
Nuclear stuff in there,
There
right?
is, yeah. So there's a new boss at the end of the game. Big tough one. So you can upgrade your structures to nuclear tier, and they get powered by uranium. From what I've seen, it looks like you just give them uranium and that upgrades them. I don't know whether they need powered continuously. I don't know. I'll probably play at some point and let you know. They've implemented unlimited saves. So before you were limited to 3, now there are unlimited saves. And the best update ever is you can finally craft flower seeds.
Yes.
Oh, I love Forager so much, but so many things rely on flowers, and there was no way to just make flowers.
Pure luck. Very stressful.
So
it's like trying to find a dinosaur egg or a shiny Pokemon all over again.
But it's like if, instead of just having the dinosaur egg for the dinosaur egg or the male, you've got it for 10 or 15 different things that you want to build. Just dreadful. So yes, craftable flower seeds. Good update. So yeah, this is a really cool update. If you obviously the links will be in the show notes. If you have a look at the update, they talk a lot about how much of this is from people's feedback. So it's really good to see them updating things based on what people have said again, because time and time again we see games kind of ignoring what people actually want or not really saying much about it, whereas Forager's really good at taking what people want and not necessarily giving everything that anybody ever says, but taking things that people find interesting and adding that official support to them in the game. So I'm quite excited about this.
I agree.
It has also been confirmed that this will be included in the Switch update when we get that at some point in Q1 this year. We don't know exactly when that will be, and there's no new information on that. In December, we were told that all of the updates will be coming to Switch at once, and so I think that's including this one. Don't know whether it will include the last one, which can't remember what that one was called, but
I guess we'll see
when we come to it. Yeah, so
we will let you know.
We will.
That's what we do best.
Yeah. So that's all the news.
Yeah. You want to know what we don't do best?
Transitions. You may hear a couple of them in this interview as well.
Yeah, we're great at them. A+ transition skills. No need to learn. So
speaking of transitions, as mentioned earlier in the episode, we have our exciting interview with Snacko, the 2 Snacko devs, and yeah, we're gonna play that for you just now. The secrets of podcasting, as we've already recorded it. We're not just about to go into it now.
Don't tell them that. It'll ruin the surprise that I'm pretty sure I already ruined earlier.
At this point, I have no idea how the transition's actually going to work in the final recording, but we'll see
how it goes. I mean, if we just say and here's the interview we recorded, and then we just started the interview, welcome to the interview.
So enjoy the interview. Okay, we are now joined by the developers of Snacko, a very exciting game that we've talked about a few times before, but we'll get into that in a minute. Can you both introduce yourselves? Tell us who you are. Yeah.
Me.
that sort of stuff.
So hi everyone, I'm Arisa, or otherwise known as Inralis, and I go by she, her pronouns. I handle the bulk of the art and the community management, marketing shenanigans with Snacko.
And I'm Jordan. You might know me as Recursive, and I'm a he, him pronouns. Or rather, I go by he, him. I don't know how to say that. Anyway,
You're good.
so I do most of the programming on Snacko. That's essentially all I do. Arisa kind of handles all of the socials and art, so I don't really touch that side. But yeah, if anything is moving around in the game or jumping or whatever, that's my doing.
And then we both
Great.
argue over the game design.
Yeah, we're both designers. So
We fight over that.
we
so.
do fight a lot. It's fine.
I'm so excited to have you.
Well, thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thank you for having this
It's an
on.
honor.
We're excited too. We've never actually
I'm so
talked
excited.
about this outside of ourselves, so this is new for us.
I'm very excited. I've been following Snacko for a long time. It's kind of like I think we both kind of have like games that we get attached to and we're constantly on about them, and this one is mine, so I'm very, very excited.
Oh, I'm blushing.
So, we kind of have, for our listeners, we kind of have this interview broken down into like 3 parts because I'm very into explaining our structure for no reason. So our first section is kind of like about the two of you. So I was wondering, like, first of all, other than Snacko, of course, which we all know is wonderful and everyone's favorite, what kind of games are you both into? Like, what do you like to play?
We're opposites,
Yeah,
so this
we're
is going to be fun.
Not close at all.
Right. So my personal kind of favorite games are simulation games or role-playing games that don't require a lot of effort. So in that camp, it's kind of like, I really like the Sims series. I really liked Pokemon and Animal Crossing and Harvest Moon and Rune Factory. And I would say those are kind of like what would represent what I like to play.
So you and I are about on the same page.
Yeah. And then now we have Recursive.
Yes, and I don't really play. This might shock people, but I don't really play farming games. I don't play the sim games or anything of the sort. I have played them in the past, but they're definitely not my go-to when it comes to.
He's only played Harvest Moon 64.
Yeah.
What? There's
Yeah.
so many better ones.
I know. She's run me through a couple, like the Doraemon, that most recent one that came out. That one looks pretty cool. But I really I think I played Stardew for a bit. Didn't really like it. But anyway, I'm talking about the games I don't like. Let me talk about the games that
the
I like.
entire listener base.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. But I mostly play like more competitive multiplayer games, which, yeah, that's probably not what you're into. But that's been most of my life. But working on this, I think, has not given me an appreciation, but an understanding of why these games are fun. And I think being blind to how farming games work has like not made me take a different approach. It's not because a lot of farming games kind of do things the same way, and I feel like some of those mechanics are not necessarily interesting, at least to me. So I'm trying to just bring a different what's the word, approach.
Yeah, sometimes it's interesting because when I was designing, for example, like the Seed Maker, I made a couple of designs for him to approve and pick from. And one of the designs was like, I kind of just copied what Harvest Moon and Stardew usually does, where it's like that little box with the funnel on the top. And I showed that to him and he said, that's a juicer. And I'm like, well, you're right, but this is what it usually looks like. So he actually chose the one that I thought he wouldn't like because it doesn't look like what a traditional seed maker machine would look like in a farming game. And he's like, well, this one doesn't look like a juicer, so I like it. So I was like, oh, I never thought about it that way.
But that's good. So what you have is like a perspective that allows you to like kind of, because you can see it differently, you can make things that are a bit what would be considered out of the box for the general genre. But what that also does is that makes it like a very distinctive style that kind of sets it apart from the rest of the genre, which is good.
Right. That's what I'm hoping, at least. I don't want to make something that people just don't like. we did, like I said, we do fight over a lot of the design.
Yep. He's like, the combat needs to be harder. I'm like, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Step away.
Yeah, I'll try not to make that too difficult, but I remember. I don't know how much you guys know. Maybe I'm getting a little off track, but we do have like a few puzzle dungeons in the game planned, and the first couple iterations of that, I made them like. She played it and she couldn't finish it, and I was like, what?
He told me, he said these are the intro levels, and these are like the tutorials to kind of help the player learn how to play through this. And I just looked at him and I put the controller down and I said, this is too hard. I'm not letting you put this in the game.
Yeah, so I think I have to.
And then he started firing back. He's like, no, it's not. This is easy. And I was like, get this out of the game right now.
Yeah, it's all the same thing, because it's also about like expectations, because every genre has a sort of expectation. And I think me and Al have talked about this before, where like the farm game, like general life sim genre is like the general expectation is that it's going to be a calmer, a bit of an easier, like kind of experience where you can just get into the groove and just kind of zone out a little bit, which is entirely different than like playing like more competitive video games.
Oh yeah.
So like that probably comes into it where like you're like, well, this should be like what I would want it to be in the games that I play. And it's like, well, that's not what anyone is expecting.
Right. I mean, if there's one thing that I absolutely will not bend on, it's jumping. I don't understand why most of these games, like the life sim games,
because
don't allow you to jump. I understand, but like it is.
Okay. Can I just say, I was playing your alpha, and I literally never even thought about jumping until I think I accidentally hit the space bar and I jumped, and I cannot even tell you, like I screamed with excitement so loud that my roommates were like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" I'm like, "I can jump! It's so exciting!" So
that's perfect.
Yeah,
good choice.
I think the only one I've played that you can jump in is Trio of Towns, which
that is the only one.
The jumping is really fun in that game. Most of the time I wouldn't walk. I would literally jump as I was going between places in the town.
Yeah, you just do a little bunny hop instead of walking normally like a normal person.
I'm very pro jumping.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And that's also why he added in like the camera controls, because in Snacko you can also rotate the camera and like pitch it up and down. And when he told me he wanted to do that, plus when he said he wanted to jump, me as an artist was like, well, I want to quit now because it just makes it so much harder, right? Because then you have to make everything like, oh, it will look good no matter where you look at it. So I cried a lot that day.
I'm so sorry. As a player, I think that's very exciting.
I know everyone liked it, and I was just crying like, yeah, I'm so glad you guys like it.
I'll make sure to like quadruple appreciate it because I know how much work it puts on you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was a long answer to what games you like to play. You talked a little bit about what the two of you do on the games and what it's like kind of working together like that. But what if you have just a kind of average day? Obviously, there is no such thing as an average day, and every day will be different, especially depending on the day of the week. But if you could give us a kind of vague overview of what it's like working on Snacko.
We probably have different answers.
Yeah, they're gonna be different.
Because we actually don't really talk to each other. We sit in the same room, but when we do talk, it's just like me sending like cat pictures or like memes and being like, "Oh, look, this is funny," and then we go back to work.
How about offices I've ever worked in?
Yeah. How about we do like a more interesting day where like not where we're fighting.
That's interesting.
Where we're like designing something new and not just.
So when we're fighting.
Okay, so when we're fighting.
So I would say usually like an interesting day like that, then we usually start work. He starts work earlier. You start work at like.
I mean, I typically wake up pretty early, probably around 8. I would get started, but
I don't get out of bed.
She's a late riser. But yeah, I mostly just we kind of keep a list of things that we're currently working on. We have a greater list of milestones that we break down into smaller tasks, and then usually each of those tasks are pretty high level, so I work through the one I'm working on right now, for instance, is upgrading equipment. That obviously can't be done in a day, and that kind of requires both of us to work on it. For instance, she'll design out the UI and we're using like a, if you know what was it called from that one Harvest Moon
Wonderful.
game? Wonderful system. Yeah, we're using a system kind of like that. But anyway, she'll send me all of the art assets, and then I'll sit there, plug them into the game, and that'll be a typical workflow.
Yeah,
that's the ideal
from
workflow.
Usually like morning until around dinner time. And so if we ever need like design meetings or like planning meetings, we do that either the first thing in the morning or like around dinner time, because after dinner it's just really hard to really get into it again. Yeah. So when we have a meeting, we have like a whiteboard, and then we just start talking, which devolves into me saying, you can't do this, and then he telling me like, no, you can't do this, this is the best way, and then we start arguing about what the superior game is. And then at one point we make some sort of usually it's some sort of compromise, or usually it's like a blend of everything, and then we stop fighting about it, and then we just put it into the game.
Oh, I know. Whenever you see like a Patreon or Twitter poll, that's usually because we fought really hard and we couldn't make up our mind.
Yep.
Wisdom of the masses.
Yeah.
And then when I
Outsword.
win, it's just like, oh yeah, I told you.
Perfect.
I feel like voting on those polls is never going to feel the same now, because I'll be trying to figure out who I'm siding with.
Well, luckily, your answers are anonymous.
Yeah. I'm gonna hunt each and every one of you down who voted for his side.
But yeah, so basically, you kind of just wake up and work on it and then finish your day, essentially.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads into, like, y'all are doing this full time now, right?
Mm-hmm. And we've been doing that since, I think, September, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a weird experience. It's kind of been changing. Like every month is a little different. I remember the moment I quit my job in September. That first month was like, holy crap, I'm getting so much done, because just not having that distraction anymore. And then as the months go on, you start to like, I don't know if it's because we're progressing farther into the game, but like time starts to get really blurry, and you sometimes don't. Because you don't have to be anywhere anymore, so it's like sometimes I don't know. I couldn't tell you what today is. I think it's Wednesday. It might be Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Though. Okay, but yeah, it's like you lose track of days. It's time. Like days honestly start to speed up a lot, and then like now we're in the middle of January. I feel like it was just Christmas. But yeah, I mean, you do definitely get a lot done. There are some huge downsides though. We're currently running on Patreon money that we've saved up and patron money. So that can get a little worrisome, just because just not having income really sucks, especially when you come from having income for such a long time. It's something to get used to for sure. Your lifestyle kind of takes a huge hit. But it has been. I mean, it's been a struggle, but it's been worth it, I think.
Yeah.
And we have, I don't know if we can talk about this kind of news, like what's happening in the near future. But we do have some good news coming soon, where we hopefully won't have to be so...
Eat spaghetti every day.
Yeah. The rough meal planning. We could afford walking around the corner and getting breakfast every now and then, maybe. We'll see. Do you want to?
I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. Do you want to talk about how that's been for you?
Well, it's different for me.
Yeah.
See, like every time you ask these questions, I feel bad because our answers are probably like triple the amount of time you were hoping for, since both of us had different answers.
Yeah.
Oh, that is fine.
Because I started doing this right out of college, so I've never had a job before. I want to say, like a full-time 9-to-5 job. So for me, doing full-time was the same. Like, there was no change. I wake up, work on the game, and then I go to bed. So it's been the same for me. It has been hard, though, and I don't want to say this is because of going full-time. It's just when you have people with, good expectations of your work, you always have this constant pressure. Like, I hope I'm not letting people down. I hope people are going to like this. And that kind of thing is very different from, like, I don't know. I feel like in college and in work, it's not just you. So the pressure is kind of spread around everyone. So if you screw up, it's not just you, it's like everyone. So this kind of pressure has been hard, but I don't think that's exclusive to just being full-time. I think that's just games.
Yeah, and I mean also in the sense that, like, you're very, like, public about, like, your making of this game. Like, you post a lot of stuff on Twitter, and, like, you have a whole Patreon where you're, like, constantly updating people and showing people things, and people can play the alpha. So, like, it's sort of like this very public, like, it's like inviting the public to say, oh, look at this, look at that. Like, it's a lot different than, like, spending the first year or two of development in secret and no one knows about it, and then you announce it, and then no one has to look at you while you develop it, like a major games company would be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally think it's weird that more people don't be more open about their development period. Like when you just have that huge secretive closed door development cycle, and then you just come out with this game. Especially nowadays that marketing is harder. I feel like it's just the wrong move. I don't know.
Especially if you're smaller.
Yeah,
if you're
well,
Nintendo,
if you're
you
smaller.
can put Metroid
if you're
4 and then shut up about it for 4 years.
Yeah. For sure. Nintendo.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing, right? You see that more often with smaller companies, but because, as you say, the bigger companies don't need to do it. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that as soon as you put something out there, there are expectations on you, and so the big companies probably just don't want to do that. Because you see, for example, what happens when they delay a game or something like that. People tend to not be very happy. Although, as we've said on here, we are very happy with delayed games because it makes them better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, the big companies can afford to do that, right? Because a lot of it has to do with, like,
exactly
the promotion and advertising, because they have the money to, like, a month before the game comes out, do a whole bunch of, like, high level advertising without having to think about it too hard. Whereas, like, if you're doing something small, like you're a smaller team or something, you have to create that yourself while you're also making the game, and that takes a lot more time and a lot more effort.
Oh yeah.
Than being able to throw $1 million to your advertising team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you do an insane amount.
Yeah, because I feel like half of my week is not actually... No, well, not as much as half, but I want to say a good quarter of it is spent on the actual game itself, but a lot of, like, writing devlogs, doing gross paperwork stuff, or, like, trying to handle the Patreon stuff. So it is a lot of work.
So would you put that at like 40, 60? 40 not like working on
35, 35, 65, I want to say.
Yeah. I would say she's probably doing that. I'm 100-0 working. So I wish I could take something off her hands, but
I like doing it.
I feel like, one, I would do a bad job, and two, you would just like say I was doing a bad job.
Nice.
Just like when I try to cook.
Don't sell me out. Stop selling me out.
Yeah. No, you do an amazing job.
Ow.
With socials.
Cool. Well, obviously, it's quite a big commitment to go in full time. And I presume it was quite scary when you quit your job. So why are you doing this? Why are you making a game? Why did you quit your job to do this? It obviously means something to you.
Personally, the reason that I began programming in the first place, this is many years ago. I'm 29, and I want to say that I don't remember the exact time that I started trying to make games, but it was around 12 years old. And I went to school I had learned programming through high school, and then went to college I had a computer science and electrical engineering degree, and I got like office jobs, and I kind of lost focus of that dream that I had when I was a kid to actually create a game. And then I met Enralis, and she went to college for game art, which was like, okay, I've been a programmer for how many years now, and you're learning how to do game art. This is like perfect. We should definitely attempt something. The only thing to come up with was the idea, which you had a very, very strong desire to create a farming game.
He told me that we couldn't do a farming game, and I was like, all right, but what if you could just grow like carrots? And he's like, okay, fine, we'll put a bit of farming game. And then it became Snacko. So oops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it were up to me, I
would have made some stupid dark shooter.
No. I'm not gonna lie. Like I do like 2D games. I probably would have made something in the similar style. Probably not a farming game, but I'm really happy with what we're working on now. I'd be proud to call that my first game.
For me, I think I didn't quit my job, but actually it was because that year when we started Snacko, that summer was when everyone was supposed to start looking for internships. And when I went into college, I was like, I want to work on Animal Crossing and Pokemon. And then it was like around the time to graduate and to look for internships. And I was like, wait, they don't make Pokemon and Animal Crossing here. So unless I wanted to get a job doing like those specific kind of games, I would probably have to move to Japan, which is probably not happening. So I applied to like 2 internships, and I got declined from all of them, which makes sense because every time they interviewed me, they were like, do you play our game? I'm like, nope. Do you like this genre of games? Nope. So they were like, all right, see you later. So, and then I was like, okay, well, I better do something this summer instead of just not doing anything. And I distinctly remember, you probably forgot, that's why you didn't bring it up, but we were having dinner at like a Thai place around the block. And then we said, let's make a game with our 2 cats.
Oh yeah.
And that's how it started. So it actually started off as like we wanted to make like a classic Zelda clone, like
yes.
a Link to the Past or
that was my dream game.
Sorry.
It's okay. There's always
next
game.
time.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, let's make an adventure game with our cats. I was like, oh yeah, that's so cool. So that day we went back and I put together some drawings and we started working on it. And then I think like within the next month it became a farming game. I'm not sure how that happened, but it just happened.
It was when you made that one screenshot with the little farm plots.
My bad.
And then everyone was like, oh my god, what is this?
And then Jordan was like, uh-oh.
Wait, no, stop.
Wait, no, stop.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
Did we even answer the question?
That's such a cute story.
Yeah, did we even answer the question? It's just we like games. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's an acceptable answer because you wanted to.
I don't know. I like that. I think it's nice to hear a story that's essentially like, I don't know, we kind of just wanted to make a game and then this is how we stumbled into making it. Like it kind of like part of the reason why I wanted to ask questions like, what does your day look like? And like, how did you get here? Is that like, I'm very much a player of games. I don't make games. I've never really, I mean, sometimes I've had the desire to make games, but not in a like, I'm actually going to do it kind of sense, more in a like, that's a weird fantasy in a world that doesn't really entirely exist solidly in my head. That would probably be fun. You know what I mean? Like, so like, it's kind of humanizing to be like, well, there's not like a trillion fancy things that have to happen like for the richest of rich people to be able to make a game. You know what I mean? And,
yeah.
like, it makes it a very real and personal experience. And that's really nice to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a messy process.
It's very messy, yeah. Because we never thought it was going to be this big. We made it with the intention that we would just do something and we don't care if it's bad or good, and then just put it on Steam for like $2 and like call it a day. And then very quickly, within like 2 months, everyone was like, what's this game? And at that point we were like, this isn't a game. There's no game. This is fake. There's no game. And then I think within that summer we realized, wait, people actually like this? You mean you can make a game? You mean if you make a game, you can sell a game? So then that's when we started getting like a little more serious about actually making this into a full game, I think.
Yeah.
Public pressure.
Yay!
Peer pressure does something for once.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Everyone on Twitter was like, where do I buy this game? I'm like, you can't. Sorry.
I feel that though, because like, I mean, like me personally, like I said earlier, like I think I have very, very similar, like I dip into a little bit of everything with games, but my real home is very much like Eris's kind of like, I like to play farming games and I like to play Pokemon and Animal Crossing. Like those are my 3 favorite genres of game: farming, Pokemon, and Animal Crossing.
Yay!
Is Animal Crossing a genre in itself?
It is Pokemon a genre. Yes.
Yes, the answer is yes. So like for me, I saw this and like I'm also like I'm really, really a cat person, so I was like, this is perfect. This was literally made with me in mind. I love it. So I totally get why people were excited, because like it's very exciting.
Ow.
So clearly I'm excited. Clearly other people are excited. Like, what about like, are you excited to be putting out a game? Like, do you have any like things you're excited about in this process? Like,
You have no idea how excited I was when I asked Recursive. I was like, okay, you know how you can write letters in Animal Crossing? And you know how they just ignore you and just write whatever? So one day I approached him. I was like, can we make that? But can we make it so that they actually kind of try to read the context of your letter? And he said, I think I can do it. And I was screaming. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. So yes, I'm really excited. But I also know, but now, okay, that's a double-edged sword. Because I'm excited for the things that we are trying to do and have done to some extent. But I also know why games don't do these things, because they're really, really hard and they take a lot of time. And if we had to pay someone to do this, we would never afford it. So now I'm like, oh, I know why Story of Seasons doesn't do this anymore. Yeah. I understand now.
There's a lot of that's interesting. Like the moment you start trying to make something along the same lines of like other games, you do come to those conclusions. It's weird. Like those weird design decisions just make total sense, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Oh, they did it because they were lazy. Yeah, I got it. Me too.
Lazy.
I'm also
this
lazy.
Is just really hard.
Yeah, no, I'm lazy too. If you gave me a try, I don't want to do it either.
Yeah. But as far as being excited, yeah, I mean, I've worked on professionally. I've worked on, most of the projects that I've worked on professionally, people don't really want to use them. They have to, and
I know that feeling.
Yeah, working on something that people actually want to spend time on and will hopefully enjoy their time with is like, to me, that'd be like, holy crap, you know, like that's kind of what's driving me to do it. Just, you know, to be your work to actually be appreciated for once.
Yeah, I want to say since the start of the game until now, our motivations of creating this game really quickly went from, oh, we just want to make something we like, to we want to make something that the fans will enjoy. And so that's why I'm so thankful for everyone on Twitter, on Patreon, on Discord, and for both of you, because I feel like without this kind of positive feedback, it honestly is just a lot of work. It's like, I want a farming game like this, but not that bad. But once people start telling us things like, oh, we're excited for your game, I'm like, oh, hell yeah, let's make it.
Yeah. I'll make you the best damn farming game you can ask for. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I get that. We started this podcast just as kind of like we just like to talk about farming games, but when we had like a few people say that they actually enjoyed listening to it, it was like it's kind of that really nice kind of kick up the bum to actually make sure you keep going with it, and you know, hey, people actually care about this. It doesn't need to be a huge number of people to care about it. Just some.
Yeah,
I totally get that. That's really good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a lot easier to like have energy and passion for something when you don't feel isolated in it. Like, no one is excited to do anything when they feel isolated in any context, you know what I mean? But like just the feeling of like, oh, I have other people around me who actually also care about this thing, and like it gives you the freedom to like express your care about the thing, and it gives them like it creates this really nice positive feedback loop of everybody is encouraging everybody else, and that allows you to get like more into it, because then like you have motivation too, because you have like, I want to learn more about this so I can share with the people who also want to learn more about this. So like it's a great thing. I feel that in my own little, literally squeal with excitement every time we get like feedback or like comments or anything. So like,
Yeah.
I get it. It makes me want to do more episodes. So
It's like the other day, we had one of our patrons play the alpha, and they submitted a bug report on our Discord, and I was just like, oh my god.
Someone actually.
Yeah, it was the first time I was happy to see a bug report.
got to report more bugs, I guess.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of, let's talk a little bit about this game.
Oh, 30 minutes in. Let's do it. So what is the game?
So, what's this game? You wanna give our listeners an elevator pitch?
Our elevator pitch is really long. The shortest I've ever gotten it to is that it's a farming adventure game with town management aspects. That is a very boring and very dry elevator pitch. But I think
With
it's
cats.
the only way to really... Yes, with cats. But now, okay, we're trying to push the narrative that there's more animals. So it's an animal farming adventure game with town building aspects. Because we feel like the game actually is there's farming, there's exploration, there's puzzles, there's the floors of mines like you had back in the older Harvest Moon games, except that they're not just square floors, they're actually procedurally generated like mini mazes. And there's also like villager interaction, inviting and stuff kind of that we've taken from Animal Crossing. So we pretty much just stuffed 3 different games we liked and put them together, and we're trying to make it work. That's our elevator pitch. It's Zelda, Harvest Moon, and Animal Crossing, and then you try to put in an elevator and make it work.
I mean, I think that's a fantastic elevator pitch. It's better than I could do. I would just be like, it's really cute. It's like Animal Crossing, Harvest Moon with cats and birds and that's basically what I would say. So you're doing better than me.
Well, that is the elevator pitch. Yeah, there's like no really like concise 6-word way to describe Snacko. I've been having trouble with that a lot, honestly.
I feel that. I'm sorry to ask you for an elevator pitch, and I'm like, I am notorious for hating elevator pitches because they're hard. So you did good.
Cool. We'll obviously have links in the show notes to screenshots and stuff like that. So for when we're talking, because we're just about to go on to some stuff about how the game looks and stuff like that for listeners. So you can click on them if you want to actually look at these while we're talking about them. But it seems like quite an interesting style for the game. Do you have any influences or any reasons you went particular ways? We've kind of it kind of reminds me a lot of the kind of Paper Mario style game.
I think I'm the one who the most because that's where I know it from, like this sort of like 3D world with the 2D characters. Is for me it's most familiar because me and my BFF used to just sit in the basement for hours and hours and hours every week playing Paper Mario. So like that's where I'm most familiar with it from. Because I know like earlier Jordan said you like 2D games, and so I'm like, is there like a sort of like influence from there of like, well, we have to have 2D something?
Yeah. So I want to say my primary influence is for at least for the art style was a very not very old but like early 2000s era MMO called Ragnarok Online.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so you know the game. So yeah, it's not quite as pixely and low fidelity as Ragnarok, but they did have sprite-based characters in a 3D world, and back in our very first alpha, where we just had a fixed camera, that was more along the lines of inspired by, oh gosh, what's it called?
Octopath Traveler.
Octopath Traveler.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a combination of those two games. We got the pixely ideas from Octopath, and then what we have currently with our camera controls is more along the lines of Ragnarok, even though Ragnarok doesn't have the exact same camera setup.
Right.
It's a little similar.
So I want to say when we first started out, our main influences were Paper Mario, Octopath Traveler, and for me personally, it was Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. I really enjoyed the sprite work in that, and I wanted something that bright. Because Octopath was like, oh, it looks really cool, but it didn't fit the universe of Snacko. So I wanted it to have that sort of Paper Mario / Octopath juxtaposition between the 2D and the 3D while still retaining kind of that really bright atmosphere. And actually the real reason why it looks the way it does is because I can't animate. So we were like
in
3D I can't animate. Well, I can, but it's a very big yikes. So we thought if we did 3D animation, this game would probably take 10 years, or we would have to have a lot of money to hire someone, right? So I was like, well, I can probably try doing sprite animation. But and then that was also around the time when Octopath released their preview trailer, I think. And then we saw in the background that they were using Unreal Engine, which is the game engine we use. So we were like, oh yeah, let's steal that. So I remember putting together kind of like I actually remade like one of the scenes like with just blocks. And we were like, okay, this camera angle, this lighting looks great. And then we kind of just took it from there and then started stuffing in more Paper Mario and Pokemon and Minish Cap.
It turned out to be that fixed camera angle really adds a lot of difficulty to like what you can design though. So like initially, we said this a couple minutes ago, we wanted it to be an adventure game, kind of like a more Zelda-y type game. And when we were putting in those elements, with the fixed camera, it didn't work that well. Like especially with like the way the camera angle was back then. If enemies or if characters or enemies or like even just things in the world were behind something, there was no way to really. You couldn't turn the camera, so you had to design everything from being open in the front, and it restricted you really hard.
Right. That's why we look so much at Paper Mario, especially like how they did their towns, and how they laid everything out so the camera was never truly obstructed.
Well, and Octopath too.
Octopath
kind of
too.
The same way, but they do a lot. They do a lot of fading, and in some instances do move the camera around. So, but yeah, we eventually kind of scrapped the whole fixed camera thing, and it's been so much better.
Especially since we added the building.
Yeah.
Because since we wanted you, like, players to be able to build, like, on a grid system and off the grid system, because Sims, you have to press Alt. I'm like, just make it deep. So anyways, one of our main goals in the beginning was we want a nice building system. We don't want it to be limited to, like, a grid like the New Beginning, Harvest Moon New Beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was we realized that we now have to let players have some sort of control over the camera. And that's, I think, when Ragnarok came in.
Yeah.
I have to say, the building part of it and placing things inside your house and stuff, that is don't do that well. And it can just become so frustrating. Like, I don't know whether you heard any of our Doraemon episode, but I find that game so frustrating trying to put anything in the house, because I've never figured out how to rotate things in that game.
You can't. You have to use your player direction. It took me 15 minutes to rotate a chair and put it where I wanted it.
Yeah. So actually putting in that thought and that time and that effort into making that really nice, I personally really appreciate. It was just a joy to place things in my house.
See, I told you people would like it.
People love it. This is so fascinating to me to like see Al's character development here. Because like I'm normally the one, like I am absolutely in love with it. I love being able to put anything anywhere. It brings me true joy. But I'm like the one of the two of us who's like, I'm really into like decorating things and making them look pretty. So Al being excited about this is surprising.
I'm not going to say I'm going to spend much time doing it, but even just like putting my bed somewhere, it was just so much. Whereas like, you know, even Stardew, which is really simple, it's just like, yeah, I'll put it there. Although you can't move your bed, I don't think, in Stardew. That's a bad example.
No, but I know what you mean. Like Stardew's because Stardew has that fixed camera. It's just like you plop it down. You can rotate chairs to make it look like they're facing the table, and there's not a lot of complexity there. But I like it. But Al does have a good point there. And that's part of the reason I like it, is because making it a lot easier and more intuitive for the player encourages people who may or may not have been into that aspect of it to get into that aspect of it. It makes it more open and more accessible to newcomers, as well as pleasing the people who are really into that ahead of time. You know what I mean? So
I put my bed at a jaunty angle.
Did you just put it in the middle of the room, rotated like 32 degrees?
No, I think it was about 45 degrees up in the corner. I think I saw one of you tweet a picture of something like that, and I was like, I like that. I don't know why. I would never do that in real life. It's an insane way to put a bed. So ridiculous. But I liked it in the game.
I'm glad it's letting you live your dreams of a 45-degree angle bed in the corner. I would never do that in real life too. That's stupid.
You need something behind the bed if you're going to do that. Storage.
Perfect. Or be like me, where my bed is always at an exact 90-degree angle with the headboard against the wall, but then like all the bookshelves and the chairs and the lamp and stuff are all at angles everywhere. Which this is just a related out thought, but like talking about like doing things in like the sprite style, I really, really love, by the way. Like it brings me true joy. I cannot tell you how excited I was like the first night I went to sleep. And I was expecting, like, I don't know what I was expecting. I truly did not know. But then, like, Momo just, like, curls up in a cat loaf on top of the bed. And that brought me so much joy. You have no idea. As a cat person, truly thrilled. I don't know if you have any thoughts in particular on, like, how do you design characters? Like, how do you do that stuff as well? Because, like, I mean, I think I may or may not have encountered most of the characters available right now, but they're all so cute and so charming. Like, how do you go about that process?
Before that, I just wanted to ask, did you notice that when you wake up, you're in a different sleeping position than when you went to bed?
Yeah, you're like rolled over, like, I was just like enjoying my dream, and now I have to wake up.
I'm really proud of that detail. So I always ask, but did you see the waking up one?
I did. I love it. I love it so much. And like, I know it sounds kind of like, oh, well, we're doing the sprites because they're so much easier than 3D, but also, like,
it's true.
The sprites are so good. They're so, like, they have so much character and so much charm to them. I love them so much.
Oh, thank you. So actually designing the things, first it goes through both of us where we both sit down and decide, like, what kind of animals we want to do. And we also have to kind of keep in mind in ratios from now on too, because we just realized, oh, we have like 95% cats. So we have to move away from that. And then after we kind of decide on a list of, okay, we want like maybe like a goat. I really want to do a goat for some reason. Maybe like a dog. And then I take this list and I essentially watch National Geographic for 2 days. And then I pick out, like, for Mac, I think I was just watching one of those like videos for cat things where there were just birds on the camera, and I was like, wait, that bird is really, really cute. So I googled black, white, and blue bird, and then eventually found the actual name, but I forgot his name is based on it, but I forgot. And then I'll go and do a couple of sketches and try to make him look cute. The only thing is that all of these designs have to translate well into the pixel sprites. And the pixel sprites are only about 24 pixels wide and 21 pixels tall, usually. That's the average. So we can't have super detailed things, or the designs have to have something that is unique enough that once you condense that portrait into a sprite, it's still readable. Like how Maru has his little checker handkerchief around his neck, or that Mag has like those distinct colorings and things like that.
I guess another thing that I want to throw into is whenever we're coming up with the personality and especially the names of the characters, with the names we do have a convention based on what animal they are. We try to draw names from a particular geographical region or culture, rather. I don't know how to say that. For instance, the cats all have Japanese names, and then what the bird were English.
The birds were like, what do you call it? American, U.S. English.
I thought it was
names?
English.
Yeah, English
and then
names.
the dogs were Russian.
They were Slavic
names.
Yeah.
We have a table. There's
a database somewhere.
It's somewhere in our game design doc, but yeah, we have. That's kind of where we get our names from, and then from there, when we finally land on a name that we like, we have to pick a personality, and that's important because that ties into our letter system. So when you're inviting these villagers, depending on the way that you write your letters, you will get somebody in that personality type who will be interested in coming to the island. So all of those things need to be taken into account.
Okay, moving on a little bit from art to more like mechanics. Can we talk about the letters? I am so excited about the letters.
I know, right? I'm excited about them too, because I'm not doing it. He's doing it.
Yeah, for me, it's like, because there's a lot of challenges, and then like when we eventually have to localize the game, I don't even know how I can. That's going to be a challenge in and of itself. But anyway, you can go on your question.
How can I make this better? I think my initial thought was just like, can we please talk about the letters?
I think she just wants you to
talk
literally
about
talk
the
about it.
letters. I get a question.
She's just
about how they
excited.
work.
No,
I'm
she
sorry.
just wants to ask about
Okay.
Well, I'm excited, but like in the way that like I'm just like I literally just want to know everything. I can make that into questions, but I literally just because for me, like I don't know, it brings me back to like those very like one of my favorite things in Animal Crossing is being able to just like send letters to people, and I know that I'm never going to get a coherent response, but just like the act of like sitting down and writing out a letter to a particular character like is very like soothing to me. Like it's an activity I really, really enjoy. So like, first of all, having letters at all in this game is so exciting to me because I'm like, yes, I want this in every game I play ever. You used to be able to write little letters in Pokemon, didn't you?
Yes.
Not anymore. I miss that.
Wait, which game?
Up until like
I don't think they
Emerald.
did anything
Really?
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could.
They didn't do anything, yeah.
You could write little notes. Excuse me, I was really, really into this.
Okay.
You could write little notes. You can get stationery and write little notes, and then you could like give them as a held item to Pokemon. So like you could trade Pokemon with your friends, and like, they'd have little notes that said like, "I hope you're having a good day" or whatever. Like that was very cute and fun.
That's pretty cool.
So I'm really, really into letters, and I'm really excited about the way that you're doing letters. Like, do you want to talk more about that, like in general?
Don't look at me. You did it. You wrote the whole system.
I mean, I did write the whole system. So yeah, the letter system is kind of going to be one of the primary mechanics in the game for not just inviting villagers to the island, but when they are on the island, it's going to be your way of building relationships with whoever you write to, I guess. So you'll be able to attach gifts and then add like a little blurb, or just for instance, if I think in the current alpha right now, if you do run out of seeds, or I think you can abuse it even if you have seeds, you can write to Nobu, the first farmer that you meet in the game. If you do ask him for some more seeds, he'll send you a bag of carrot seeds, I believe.
Also, if you call him an old stinky man, he'll tell you to wash your mouth with soap.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I am kind of tempted to try that now. And I will tell you can. He will just send you seeds for no reason. Because, like, I actually think I accidentally asked for seeds. Because, like, he sent me some seeds and was like, oh, thank you for the seeds. And he, like, wrote me a letter back, like, well, here's some more seeds. I never appreciate it. I was just like, thank you.
Because the way that the letter system works, right now it's not that great yet because we just started it. But the idea of it is that we have a list of words that we put a tag on. So, for example, stinky, ugly, old man. All of these are considered rude words. We even put in swear words because we know that's how people are and they're going to swear.
Yeah.
So we put these words in the rude category. If you write it, some villagers will get offended and they will tell you to like not be so rude. Some will be sad. And I think in Mac's case, since he's kind of like, you know, a different personality than Nobu, he just gets sad that you're rude. And there are also villagers that we want to add in that actually kind of appreciate that attitude and will tell you that you have a lot of spunk and that you're interesting. So that's kind of the gist of how it works, is that it will take certain words and put a tag on them. For example, like a word such as need, want, looking for would be tagged as a request. So the second it sees that, it tries to understand what you're requesting. And if it's valid, it will send you like a pre-written letter structure back. So if you say, I really need a carpenter on this island, all the system that it sees is that need and carpenter. And then it will go like, okay, I'm going to send you a letter from Maru, the carpenter.
Adding on to that, though, based on the mood of the letter, so if you write it in a nasty way...
Also,
you'll get a nasty carpenter.
Yeah. So now we don't have that many villagers to invite, right? So you're always just gonna get Maru. But our hope is that once I design enough villagers, if you write a nasty letter, you're not just going to get a nasty reply from Maru. You will get a grumpy carpenter versus Maru. So that's kind of our like whole shtick of you get to kind of customize your town down to who lives in it.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. like as a player, like it has the same appeal of like when you make Animal Crossing towns and like you ask your friends like who are your villagers, like this sense of like there's a sense of like personalization, words are hard. There's this sense of personalization and like customization of like my town is inherently going to be different than Al's town, because like if I write a really nice and sweet letter and I get a really nice and sweet carpenter and Al is just like whatever, who wants to move in, and gets a different one, like that's fun and exciting, and it's also one of those things that like makes you want to continue playing the game or like make multiple save files of the game to be like, well, who can I discover this time, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so that's really exciting.
I feel personally attacked. I just want to say that.
Just a little fun hint for your listeners and maybe for Al. We do put slang words as part of the list. So if you use too many weird words, like if you say yeet, Maru will call you weird. And he will comment that he hopes you're not this weird when he meets you in person. I think that's
weird is a score. I forget.
Yeah, weird is a score, and I think all of the words are just like I forgot. I had to Google
like,
what
I think
meant.
Ooh is one of them.
Oh yeah, ooh, like the face.
There's a
I
couple.
guarantee I've never used that word in my life before. I feel like, however, the words that I would use that would be considered weird are probably too weird to be on your list. So maybe we need to exchange, and I'll send you some words that might be used for more people in this area.
That is actually how we started that process.
Yeah.
So we tweeted out like a Google form, and all I said was, "This is the prompt, right? So please write a letter as if you're playing the game, trying to get a carpenter onto your island." And then we also made sure to tell everyone that, like, just write it as if you actually had to do it in the game. So if you feel like you're a lazy player and all you're going to write is carpenter or please do so. And we got, how many replies did we get? Like around 90 or something.
Yeah.
It was a lot of replies.
A good amount of data.
And he ran some, like, wizard programming script and extracted a bunch of words. And that's how we started the list.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it is gonna be challenging though, like with what Al said, based on the different regions, because like I don't I don't know what you guys say in Scotland, or like when we do localized to like Japan. Like I don't even know. I can't say
You're right.
anything in Japanese. So that's going to be one of the major. That's still a major question in our head is how we're going to handle those regions. I'm just not sure yet.
Yeah.
I will give your listeners a bit of a sneak peek, though, that we have considered people who would have a problem typing for a long time or have problems with typing via a controller. So we are thinking of a way to have it a system outside of the one where you manually type everything, to do it like in the old Pokemon games where you can select phrases and fill in the blanks and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I love that.
So that is in the works. So if you really, really can't type or you just don't like to type, it's okay. We're going to try. We're going to try to make it work.
Me if you just have no imagination.
I'm so excited about the letters.
Okay, so you've been making the game for quite a while now. Can you think of one of the hardest and easiest things in making the game? Any particular challenges or just kind of things where you go, oh, that was really easy compared to what I thought it would be?
She's making a weird face right now. I'm not sure what she's thinking. What are you thinking?
I was thinking you probably have a good answer for that.
Well, I have a good idea as to what you're currently thinking.
Everything is hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
Okay, to be more specific, the way that Snacko is as an art style does not currently, to my knowledge, exist. So, as an artist, I can't cop out by seeing, oh, I have this, like, logistics issue I need to solve. How did this game do it? So, I don't have that sort of grandfather wisdom to help me out in certain cases. There are games that are fixed camera in 2.5D, like Octopath, like Paper Mario. There are games with bright, chunky pixel art, like Pokemon Diamond, and a lot of other great indie games. But there does not exist a game that I know of that has bright, chunky pixel art in a 3D world that you can spin the camera 360. So that's been, for me, the hardest part, is to just really nail down everything.
And I mean, you're still we're going through another art direction rework right now, and it's looking. I don't know if you guys have seen her like recent progress screenshots, but it's looking way better than what we have now.
It looks fantastic.
It's gonna be exciting.
I'm really excited.
But I have to remake the whole game.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, I put in all the crops. I was like, oh boy, I think I have to redo these. Huh?
As far as things that I find challenging or not challenging, honestly, farming, I thought it was going to be a much harder system to put together. And it turns out that's not really the case. The more challenging parts that I really didn't expect were NPCs, and just with the system that we have, where they each have a schedule as to where to be, and based on where they are, they'll say certain things, and based on where you've talked to them before, they'll say certain different things. That system has kind of gone beyond my initial expectation, and I understand why a lot of games now don't do that kind of system where they kind of just have NPCs,
talking
mostly.
The same thing.
What?
Where they say the same thing.
Yeah, or they don't really move around that much, or they're not in certain places at certain times. Although Stardew does that, so
yeah.
And I think my main inspiration behind wanting to do that was if you've played Majora's Mask. I've always loved how all the different NPCs would be in certain spots and certain times doing whatever. But actually making it was way harder than I thought. So another challenging thing probably would be saving the game. And you wouldn't expect that. You would think that, oh, there's probably something in Unreal where I could just type
Save game.
Save game. But no, that is not the case. And I have spent maybe cumulatively probably almost a month on just our saving and loading system. There's a lot of data in Snacko currently, and there's probably going to be more put in soon as we move into our quest and relationship systems. But hopefully after those couple systems, everything's going to be more or less just a slight extension of something that's already there.
Don't jinx yourself.
I know. I always say that too. That's another thing that I'm
after
like,
I've done this, it's going to be easy.
Yeah, it's going to be smooth sailing from here. I say that every month. But yeah.
Cool. Well, you mentioned a bit about the quest and relationship stuff. So I'm going to ask a question that's not related to that.
Okay.
That made more sense in my head.
A+ transition.
I'm great at these.
THS transition.
Obviously, there'll be you've mentioned that there'll be some sort of story behind this. Is there anything you want to share about the story at this point, or is it too early? Have you got ideas? These sorts of things.
He's looking at me because I'm the only person who has handled that so far, and I'm sweating. I'm like sitting here with that sweat drop emoji over here. So there is a story. I will say that. There is a story. There is a story mode. You can technically finish the game and stop. Because one of the things we wanted with Snacko was an optional endgame. Where like the credits in Rune Factory, where there is a storyline. You can play it after the storyline finishes, but there is a storyline to it. And the story does have something to do with the island. The island that you are living on in the game was previously an island that a lot of animals lived on. So now it is abandoned. And part of that storyline is figuring out why everyone left and how to restore it to the way it was. So the whole point behind kind of Momo and Mikan arriving on that island and starting on that town and trying to invite villagers is to try to restore that island back to what it used to be like. And that so far is the only story part that I can say, because it's probably the only part that will never change.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. It's still a long way till the game releases, so I'm sure it will change multiple times if it's anything like the art and the town layout.
Last time someone called me out and said, "You're going to change this in another month." I'm like, "No, don't insult me." And then next month I'm like, "I'm changing the town layout again." I got called out.
Well, it's kind of hard, I would imagine, because like as you're creating more, as you're like designing more of everything else, because like especially like in video games, like everything is kind of connected to everything, and so if you make adjustments on one side of the scale over here, it naturally is going to need adjustments on the other. Mm-hmm. So like you change the camera, well, now you have to change some of the map to make it work better with the camera, like stuff like that. Like, yeah. I'm sure.
Yep.
I like that story a lot, though. Like, that's just like, that's a fun elevator pitch kind of a story. Like, why did everyone leave the island? Figure it out. Like, as I say in my household, which no one here probably knows, but like, we love a mystery in this house. So, like, anything that's like, there's something you can figure out here is thrilling to me. I love it so much. And if that doesn't end up being what it is, I'm sure I'll probably still love it and be excited. I'm very excited for this game.
We are excited to also, because that is something that we have budgeted in, is help to figure out the narrative, to quadruple make sure that the story is not bad, because I am not a story writer. I'm not a writer. But it is something that I feel like in Rune Factory 4 especially, it was I didn't expect it, because I usually don't like combat games, and that's what the storyline in Rune Factory 4 was, right? You had to fight a boss, you had to go through the dungeon. But I enjoyed it because the story was cool, and I got really attached to Ventuswell. So for me, that element of the farming sim was very important to me, and I want to recreate that feeling of having some sort of forward momentum and having the story tied to unlocking things in the actual farming part of the game go together. So that is something that we really want to get right. And we're going to be really excited when one day we finally figure out what that means. Because we don't have it figured out right now.
I'm excited. And I mean, like, I think that's also, I think about this sometimes, especially like in like the farming game life sim genre, because a lot of the times people get very, how do I word this? Usually when people are just first getting into the genre, like the number one complaint I hear is, I just don't know what to do with myself.
Right.
Like, because they tend to be very open. It's like, what do I do? Like, it's like, do whatever you want, but then it's like choice paralysis. Like, there's so many things I can do. What do I do? So like being able to have like, oh, well, if I can't think of anything else I want to do, I'll just work on the story. You know what I mean? Like having this like set thing here to sort of guide you through the experience, I think is really helpful for players as well. So I also felt that very much. Like I was also very emotionally attached to Vent as well. I'm just like just like this idea of like you can do this thing and like you have all these options, but also on the side, like if you get bored just watering your crops every day, go and do a dungeon. You know what I mean? Like
right. And I think being like, able, if we are able to pull it off, where the story is integrated through the progression of the simulation part in a way that's not too invasive for people who just want to play the simulation part. I'm hoping that will help non-gamers, because I want my parents to play this game, but they don't even play Candy Crush. So I want my parents to play this game. I want people who have some sort of weird idea that farming sims are like not games to play this game. I want everyone to at least try and to be able to enjoy the game. So I feel like kind of adding that progression based with a bit of story will hopefully push farming game lovers like Jordan, who's making this game, to play the game.
I've developed an appreciation. I have to.
Yeah. On that kind of a note, like, do you have like any particular thoughts you want to share? Anything you want to like make sure our listeners know, or anything we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about more?
No, but I did want to thank you guys for doing this podcast. It's really fun. I feel like farming sims are an amazing genre that really doesn't get old. So I'm glad there's more people out there kind of advocating and pushing this idea of farming sims and what makes them so great.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, I'm like blushing. I'm like making a face like, oh my god.
Oh, I want to add something. Momo is a very stinky cat.
Oh no.
She's sleeping pretty close to the mic. I'm hoping she doesn't wake up.
Yeah, because like the two like sort of like starter characters, like you play as Momo, and then it's Mikan you arrive to the island with, like, because those are based on your personal cats, right?
Yeah. Momo is our black cat, and then Mikan's she's actually behind me. Oh, they're both here.
Yep. I told you, that's our soundproofing. There are soundproofing pads.
Yeah. I guess another thing that because it was initially based on our two cats, but do you want to talk about character?
Okay, don't quote us on this.
Don't quote
us. And don't hold us up to this.
No. I think we're doing it.
You realize this podcast
see, you're
is
doing
going
it.
out to other people
You're
to listen
saying
to, right?
Yeah.
You're saying that we're doing this because you're not the artist. So you can tell people that you can do this. But we are considering putting in character customization so you're not stuck playing a purple cat. You can maybe play animals where we would be able to swap out like the tail, the ears, the face. And
color.
If that happens with the colors and stuff, then we will also be able to put in like little accessories like bows. Okay, now we have to do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like people.
I'm crying.
People want this. I want this.
I know I want this, but I am also internally crying
I know.
the amount of work that I'm gonna have to do.
I mean, it's a lot of work for me too, but yeah. No, we definitely have to pull that off somehow, because it would be cute if like we could also do stuff like around Christmas time, just get a mail with like a Santa hat.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, I want to do it. Yeah, but we do want to move away from that. Oh, you're stuck playing this female black cat named Momo. We want people to be able to just make whatever they want and name their character whatever they want and truly get to roleplay in this universe as whatever they want.
That would be incredibly exciting, mostly because I just want to put little bows on little cats. I would be thrilled, but also I think I'd be thrilled if that didn't end up coming to fruition, because like Momo's real cute.
It's okay.
Like,
I heard your real reaction.
Yeah.
I understand. I'll try my best. We'll try our best to make it happen. You don't have to make me feel better.
No, but like that's the truth, is that like, because I know I'm a little bit in the minority on this, where like I think most people in general, in my experience in like the gaming sphere, is most people really want to customize things. They want to be able to have their own character that's more reflective of them or whatever. I'm very much in the camp that I enjoy that a lot, but I'm quite content if I can't. Like I mean, depending on the context, like for example, people complained a lot about Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, when you had to play the original default Hoenn characters after you could customize your character in X and Y for Pokemon. But I was like, I don't know, I don't mind. Like it's a cute character design. I don't mind going through it. But then again, also like I get irritated when like as a non-man person, I don't necessarily like when I'm forced to play a default of like this character is always going to be a man. So like I'm kind of like middling in that.
Right.
So like so long as I can personally connect to whatever the default design is, I don't have a problem. And like I said, I'm a cat person, and the
So
Momo
you're
design
biased.
is really, really cute. I am heavily biased. But that would be exciting. So like that's our secret exclusive news. There may or may not be customization.
If you quote me on that, I will cry. If you hold me up to it, I will
quote her and hold her up to it.
Stop!
The customization's coming.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. It has been great fun. We have so much to edit. So that'll be fun.
You say it like that, like it's a bad thing.
Please keep your transition. Like if I can make a request, that's my only request. Keep that transition where you say, "Oh, you talked about quests, but I'm not going to ask about that." Please keep that.
Oh, I will definitely keep that. Don't you worry. I know the difference between me just sounding like an idiot and things that people will actually find amusing. So
here on the Harvest Season, we have no shame in flaunting our horrible transition skills.
But yeah, thank you for coming on. Could you tell the listeners about where to find you? Is there, if they are really excited about the game now and they want to help out, is there a way they can do that?
You can find Snacko under the Twitter handle Snacko Dev, so that's like SNACKODEV. And the website for Snacko is snacko.land. That's a very fun URL that our patrons also answered on because I couldn't decide. So from just the Snacko website, you can find a lot about our stuff. Like you can get links to our Discord, you can get links to our Patreon and our Twitter and all those fun socials. If you really, really do want to support us, we are funding this project right now entirely through our Patreon support. So if you do want to and you have the ability to, we absolutely love when people become patrons, and that's on Patreon/SnackoDev. If Patreon just doesn't work for you, we also have other ways that you can support us, and that can also be found on our website at snacko.land. Yay.
Yay. And that was our interview. We hope you enjoyed it at least half as much as I did. I was very excited the whole time and too nervous. I tried not to through everybody all the time.
It was a lot of fun.
It was so much fun.
It was great.
Thank you again very, very much to Arissa and Jordan for agreeing to do this with us. It was very exciting and very fun. If you listeners have any other developers you think should give us an interview. Is this a good one?
Yeah.
You
Send them our way.
Yeah, send them our way. Send them a message. Link them to us so they don't think we're fake. Let us know, please. You can do that by tweeting us at THSPod or emailing us at the website, harvestseason.club. And Al, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, which I'm on most of the time because that's my life. You can find me on Twitter at TheScottBot. Each of those words has a T. There is nothing between the words.
And if you want to talk to me about how much fun writing letters to video game characters is, you can tweet me at Miss Delaney. Delaney has 2 L's, and they're right next to each other. And until next time, have a good harvest. The Harvest Season is created by Rochelle Delaney and Al McKinley. Our art is done by Micah the Brave, and our music is done by Nick Burgess. Feel free to visit our website, theharvestseason.club, for show notes, including links to things we discussed and transcripts for every episode. Thanks for listening. So, I'll do 1.
2.
And then...
Oh, okay. We were starting. Okay.
We should have decided this beforehand.
Oh, wait.
I'll do 1. Al will do 2.
Oh, did you say I'll do 1? I thought you said I'll do 1.
I will do 1.
Oh, yes, you said 1.
Rochelle will do 1. Al will do 2. And then it'll be...
I need a better name.
Arissa and
Yeah,
Jordan, right?
We'll do 3. Okay.
Okay.
Got it.